All right, here's part two. And I'm going to start with a code we did in the simple sort of jQuery CSS tutorial. So if you've already watched that, you probably have this code, or you can grab it from our class view folder in jQuery tutorials. And I'm going to move, right now we have code that changes this text here using the clicked and unclicked classes. And now to create a pop-up, we don't actually need to do any more jQuery. So this is where the sort of add and remove class is kind of awesome. All we have to do is use CSS. So I guess let's just use it as is. So if we're going to look at the clicked class, that's when we want it to pop up, and the unclicked is when it doesn't show up. So the first thing to do is let's just make it not show up at all. So we're going to say display none when it's unclicked, and we're going to say display block when it's clicked. And if we've done that correctly, that should make it show up when it gets clicked. So that's a very simple way to hide and show it. You could also use jQuery hide and show if you wanted to. In fact, if you just wanted to use jQuery toggle, you could simplify this whole thing and then use the pop-up CSS. So I could show you that in the end. But the key now is going to be to add the code to make it look cool when it does display. So we could put all that under the clicked. If you were using clicked for other things, you could add a class here. You can add classes with spaces in between them. So I'm going to add the pop-up code in a different class, partly because it's a little bit cleaner code-wise, and it's clear what it does. So now I'm just going to show you what this does. Notice it doesn't show up at first. When it does appear, the clicked gets applied and the pop-up. So you can have more than one class apply. All right. Now, pop-up should be, if we want it to look like a pop-up window, what we're going to use is absolute positioning to stick it on top of the window. And we can choose a position for the window based on the browser. So the top left corner is 0, 0. So if we wanted the window to show up somewhere around here, maybe we'd put in 100, 100. So we do that by using the top and the left CSS. So top 100 pixels, left 100 pixels. And if we want it to look like a window, we probably want it to have a width and a height. So we could do those in pixels, or we could do it in percent. I guess I'm going to start with just a fixed pixel. Let's say we want it 300 pixels wide and height 300 pixels high. And let's see what that looks like. Okay, so now we have the window show up. We'll notice it's transparent, so it doesn't quite look like a window yet. And again, this won't be a real window, which is good because most browsers block pop-ups anyway, so that's why people do these CSS-style pop-ups. But if we just add a background color to it, now it will no longer be transparent. I just made the background white. Now it's not transparent. Maybe I decided 100 pixels down is too far. I can move it up 50 pixels. And I can start to play with the positioning. If you get sick of, if you want your troubleshooting to be faster, just change the class to clicked, and then the pop-up will be there for while you're playing with the CSS. So I can say, okay, of course, anytime we add a border, we want to add padding. So let's add some padding. Let's make the border rounded, border radius. We can make the border a little bit thicker. Where's the border? Border width, 5 pixels. There we go. Now we have a nice little pop-up. If you wanted it to be partly see-through, you could do that. You could add a alpha value there. Oops, that's too see-through, isn't it? That works. Oh, that just broke it, I see. We could do opacity. Sorry, opacity, 0.7. Now it's a, that still looks pretty bad, doesn't it? That's now partially see-through. I don't happen to like that effect, but you might want it depending on your website. So now we have a partially see-through pop-up window. it shows up there. The only other thing we need to do here, it's toggled with this. We probably want to add some kind of either a close button in the window or or make it so if you click the whole thing, it closes. So let's try adding a close button. So it's pretty easy to do. We can just add a button that says close into our thing there. And if we want to position it, we can do so with CSS. So pop-up button, position absolute. Now, absolute positioning of a button is going to be relative to this box. So if the box is 300 wide, I can say I want it and 300 tall. If I want it at the bottom, I can put it, top 280 pixels, left 280 pixels. And let's take a look at where that puts the button. Down there, maybe I decide I want it to move a little bit over. And here I can just play with the values until I like the way they look. Maybe I actually don't want it 300 pixels tall. I'll make it 290 pixels tall. Pow. So now I have a button there. Of course, the button doesn't currently do anything. I'm going to have to write some jQuery to do that. So let's go ahead and now write a little bit of JavaScript. If we come back up here, we probably shouldn't just call the button. So let's give it a class popup-close so that it's in case we have other buttons on our page. So now we select the class popup.close. When it is clicked, function, which means we do this thing. What do? This should be getting easier. We grab this, we grab its parent, which is going to be the whole div, and we remove the class clicked, and we add the class unclicked. Ooh, I just actually introduced a new style of coding. You can chain these dots together so you don't have to keep repeating what you're typing, and that's a very convenient feature of jQuery, is it allows this chaining. So now when I close that, oops, except that maybe I messed that up there. Well, let's try not chaining it. Beautiful. All right, so not surprisingly, I made a mistake. We will take a look at the inspector. And as always, we'll go ahead and just add some code so we can see what happens when that gets clicked. So my selector is not working. Okay, sorry about that. The error was just not having my close there, and this is actually a good sign. I failed to do something I always advise my students to do, which is when you close a function, so for example, this parenthesis closes this magic click, add comments that say what you're doing. So end magic click. And this one, end pop-up close, because that's going to help you not, what I had done is I'd had the parenthesis on the wrong side, and it's just going to help you not make that error. So let's go ahead and look at this now that I've got the parentheses fixed. I click this, it appears, I close it. Last thing, I'm going to make it actually unclicked by default, so there's no pop-up when we first load. I just had the pop-up there for convenience earlier. So now, click, there's my little pop-up, close. Click, there's my little pop-up, close. And clicking this also toggles it. So I have two ways to close it. And I could make as many of these styles of windows as I wanted, and they'll be different. So for example, if I took this code and copied it, I could make a second